My name is Thomas Wilke. I'm scientific lead of GIPAM, and we have a history, extensive history of doing oncology RWE studies in Germany. Well, there are different data sources that can be used for oncology RWE studies. I would say there are mainly three types of sources. First of all, of course, we have claims data, sickness fund specific claims data, and also German-wide claims data. And these can be used for oncology research as they can be used for other disease areas. Secondly, every oncology case needs to be reported by an oncology practice or clinic to a state-specific cancer registry. And these cancer registry data are consolidated in a German-wide data set, the cancer registry data set. And this is obviously also an interesting data source for real-world evidence. And then finally, because of the disadvantages and weaknesses of the previous data sets, meaning claims and German-wide cancer registry data, specific registries as well as specific EMR data sets, and at the very end also medical chart review data can be used for specific RWE studies, specifically if the variables and follow-up information that is needed for a study cannot be met by the claims data and cancer registry data. Claims data are an interesting data source without question. Their strength is broad coverage of all healthcare services. So we see in a patient all GP, all specialists visits, all hospitalizations with the respective procedures and diagnosis. We see all treatments, prescribed treatments, and there are, with regard to German data, no data gaps. So it's not like open claims in the US. It is really full coverage of what happened with typically a very, very long follow-up per patient, because insurance switching is possible in Germany, but not very common. And typically if you change your job, your employer, you do not change your sickness fund. So the average follow-up duration for patients is typically beyond 5 years, often 10 years or so. So these are the typical advantages: broad coverage, high sample sizes, and long follow-up. But there are disadvantages, and the main disadvantage obviously is lack of clinical data, which means that specific cancer tumor characteristics like the TNM status, like certain laboratory values, cannot be identified. We might use certain proxies to identify stage of the disease because we have ICD-10 codes for metastasis, but other clinical elements are not available. We also do not see performance status of patients, and we do not see obviously outcomes such as response. A final big advantage of German claims data, also compared to claims data sets in other countries, is that mortality is fully available 100%. So we can do OS analysis quite easily and can cover mortality completely. The new FDZ dataset is a German-wide claims dataset, and it certainly can help, but it comes with some challenges and disadvantages as well. The biggest advantage of the new FDZ dataset is that it covers 70 million people, which means that the sample sizes that can be generated using this dataset are much bigger than sample sizes identified in a claims dataset like the GWQ dataset, which we typically use, which covers about 7 million people, and that is 1/10 of the FDZ. But the FDZ dataset, as mentioned, comes with some challenges. First, data are only available since 2019, which is 9 to 10 years less than with other claims datasets. And the second challenge is more an operational challenge. We have still some uncertainty around how the processes will be defined. No direct access to patient-level data is granted. The number of tables and cells per table that can be generated for reporting purposes are limited. So there are some more severe limitations around the procedures. But generally, the dataset, of course, is a very interesting one because it covers many patients and provides more or less the same information as every German claims dataset. Of course, GIPAM can do a German claims data study. It can do a traditional German claims data study, typically using the GWQ dataset, which covers 7 million persons and provides data from 2010 until more or less now. That is a study that has a quite short timeline from kick-off over protocol writing, approval, data analysis and reporting. We typically don't need more than 5 to 6 months. So that's a very straightforward process. GIPAM can also support FDZ data analysis, so the analysis of the German-wide claims data set. Given the process challenges around usage of this data set, we currently typically recommend to combine an FDZ analysis with a traditional claims data analysis and first do the traditional one and then follow up with the FDZ data analysis. But of course, if clients prefer that, we can also set up own FDZ studies and can easily do them a bit with higher uncertainty around the timelines that can be expected here. Theoretically, in oncology, this is a great data source. Every oncology site, every oncology clinic generates these data, reports these data, and then they are consolidated, validated, and are available for scientific research based on respective submissions. We can support that as GIPAM and already did a couple of cancer registry studies. What is a difference or what is a challenge in these data sets is that documentation quality by sites, as well as in some areas the definition of the respective data sets has weaknesses. So we see if we analyze our German-wide cancer registry data, quite a number of variables that are missing. And in addition, even for variables that are an element of the cancer registries, we see weaknesses in documentation quality, specifically with regard to long follow-up. So what we typically recommend is if we set up a German cancer registry study, that we include a feasibility stage where we first look at the data, look at the patient numbers, look at the number of patients with complete data, and then afterwards set up the respective analysis. So all in all, German cancer registry data are a promising data source, but the analysis of these data requires a bit experience and a bit more extensive validation and quality assurance work than we typically would expect if we work with German claims data. Of course, we can do these studies and are happy to do these. We have established contacts to the ZFKD, which is the organization providing access to these data. We know what is needed for data application, what type of protocols are expected. So happy to support studies based on German-wide cancer registry data. The options depend a bit on what is needed. So if the research question refers to inpatient treatment only, we could offer a large EMR dataset covering more than 80 acute clinics in Germany and see whether such a database can answer the research questions. If that is not the case, and if German claims data do not provide the necessary answers. And if German-wide cancer registry data do not provide the necessary answers, we still have two options. First, our own oncology EMR dataset, the so-called OncoCase dataset. And secondly, the planning and conducting of a medical chart review using the OncoCase platform. These are the two remaining options. And I didn't mention the prospective observational study, which is obviously also a third option, but I wouldn't outline that now because it takes more time and is associated with higher resources. But nevertheless, I mean, there might be cases like external control groups where prospective design even might be the right answer to this question. So, but to answer this question again, own OncoCase EMR data or doing a medical chart review, these are the two options that I would see here. OncoCase is a tumor documentation platform that was developed by GIPAM in the last 2 years, and it has some unique features. First, we use it to build our own oncology EMR dataset. That's ongoing, and in some tumor types like lung cancer, we already have substantial patient numbers and a substantial data set that can be used for scientific research. The way how we build it is that we offer this tumor documentation platform to oncology clinics and practices. The platform provides some add-on services to these clinics, and they agree to give us the right to generate an anonymized research data set that can be used for scientific purposes. So that is one option. Look at our existing EMR data and see whether we find the necessary patient numbers with the respective data. The second option is to use this OncoCase platform for an own medical chart review or even a prospective study. And what is the unique feature of that OncoCase platform? Well, that's a very straightforward thing. If a site or clinic does a chart review with us, it no longer needs to complete a CRF because we just ask the site or clinic to upload original patient documents like lab reports, pathology reports, or chemotherapy treatment planning documents, etc., etc. Then we are using own stuff, but mainly we use artificial intelligence models to extract the necessary information and to generate the data set. So OncoCase is specific because it's used as platform to help sites and then to generate an anonymized research data set that is increasing in its size every day. And secondly, if the data in the current data set are not sufficient, OncoCase is the right platform to generate new data via a medical chart review using these unique artificial intelligence features that help to reduce the administrative burden of sites in such a study by 80–90%, because no one anymore needs to complete a CRF. Well, the natural first step is to look at the research objectives and the required variables and required data quality, let's say that. For most studies, we might end up with claims data because we can identify our patient population of interest. We can see the treatments, we can see the physician and hospital visits, and we can see overall survival. In some other studies, the cancer registry data might be the right ones. And in a third group, we might need to use the OncoCase EMR data or medical chart review data. And then in some rare cases, there might be research questions that are combined with the request to do a source validation by a committee. And in these cases, obviously, no longer existing data can be used. In these cases, we might find another solution, going back to the original data at the site and clinic level and generate a new data set. So it really depends on the study objectives and on the requested quality and source validation of data, and then in a systematic process the decision is made which data to use. So first message is oncology RWE research is possible. I mean, that's an important message, right? Because sometimes people think, well, the data are not there, what should we do? Yes, there are data. The general options we typically have is first claims data, German-wide or sickness fund specific. The second option is German-wide cancer registry data. And these provide additional details, but also have their limitations. The third option is we can use existing EMR data sets. I mentioned an inpatient data set, but I also mentioned in the context of the previous questions our own OncoCase EMR data set. And then finally, we might also need to go or to choose the option of own data collection via a medical chart review, technology-driven, or even a prospective study, specifically if patient-reported outcome data are needed, which are typically not available in existing patient charts and in existing databases. These are the options for German oncology research in terms of real-world evidence, and we are more than happy to explore the right option for you. What we could do right now is to set up a short call with you to do a kind of alignment call to understand your needs, and then to provide without any cost implications and without any budgets a recommendation which database to use. But you're also invited to look at our decision tree to see whether you find the right database on your own. So happy to support you and looking forward to your requests.